It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, June 8th, and very happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness with Dr. Abe from Australia, the Practical Word Study, and of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is Wednesday. We have service tonight, and hope you guys are looking forward to some great word. Make sure to pray for your leaders who are preaching tonight. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave some likes or comments to build our community. Really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up, support each other, and I hope that all of us will be able to draw closer to the Lord and to each other through these programs. All right, so Wednesday, middle of the week, super happy to be here. I hope you guys are doing good too. For me, I just had my brother's birthday on Sunday, and then not this Sunday, but the Sunday after, we have Father's Day. It is a crazy month. It really is for me. My dad's there's Mother's Day, my dad's birthday, my brother's birthday, and then Father's Day. And these four events are within a month. So like I said before, it's crazy expensive, but I am very thankful and grateful that I'm able to just be able to spend some time with my family too. So Father's Day is around the corner. I've already made reservations at the seafood restaurant. I went with my brother for his birthday, for my dad, for Father's Day. And of course, my mom loves seafood. My dad has absolutely no preference. He just follows my mom wherever he goes. But I don't mind either, but it was really, really good there. So we are heading there to have some really good seafood. I am thankful. And I made reservations because it just gets so packed, and there's no point of if you do it too late, you'll have nowhere to go. So I am thankful that we're able to do this. So, remember I talked about this, my parents talking to me about talking about their death and how we who's going to take care of who and stuff like that too. And after that conversation with my parents, it made me think a little bit more deeply. And it also made me think that I need to spend some more quality time with them. So, maybe not just me spending time, but also, giving them the things that I got them tickets to the VSO. Those are really cheap. And then we're going to have Father's Day dinner and stuff. And my parents were really happy because they were in Whistler on vacation for the weekend. And I took my brother out for dinner, and sending my mom those pics of me and my brother together. They were really, really happy about that also. So yeah, I guess, this family time is really important. Of course, I'm not going to say it's the most important thing. Of course, it's we have to live our lives with our family in it, but it's a very, very important part of it. But yeah, I'm starting to, I guess I'm starting to be a little bit more sentimental because I know that my parents won't be around for long. And I don't know how long they're going to be this healthy for either. So, yeah, I am trying my best to spend a lot more time with them. And, parents are back from their vacation. My mom is back to momming. She's retired, so she got so much time. So she's like, hey, I'm going out today. I won't be here for lunch. She's like, hey, no problem. She's like, hey, if there's the steaks in the fridge, or there's like soup and rice and like side dishes, just, go ahead and make it yourself. And make it myself. I look in the fridge, everything is already individually wrapped and made ready to go. I'm just like, man, I love my mom, but she is, I partly understand it's because she's retired and she has tons of time on her hands and she wants to be busy. So I'm thankful that I'm here, and I'm thankful that I can fulfill that part of her life that can make her a little bit more busy, as weird as that sounds. Either way, you know what? I got a question for you guys, because this is what I'm going through right now, and I think it's just a phase in, just not in life, but whenever we do anything. Are you guys bored? Are you bored? I feel there's a point where you're really relaxed and comfortable, but then if it goes on too long, you become bored. My relaxed state has turned into boredom, as weird as that sounds. I'm in that zone. I'm like, man, I got to do something again. I got to do something again. And, even though I am doing things now, and remember I told you about these coloring books and stuff that I'm making, and I'm super hyper-focused on it, right? And, just as I get hyper-focused into it, I can just easily fall out of it too. Like, let me give you an example of how hyper-focused I am. I started these coloring books. I started making them May 19th. So it's been like 2.5, 3 weeks. Right? June 18th is when my 1 month is over because I promised myself, you know what? I'm going to make these coloring books for 1 month. I've already made 14 coloring books and 1 ebook. Like I've made that much already because I'm just like spending my time doing this as much as I can. And, like I started going, like I was starting off with making books for children 4 to 8. And then I was like, let me do something for teenagers. So, well, not teenagers, like 8 to 12. I did like a fashion coloring book for, girls, is for girls to coloring like girls in fashion and stuff like that. And then I was like, let's get into adult coloring books. So I did this one anime coloring book with like Japanese samurai, geishas, ronin, and ninjas and stuff like that. And then I did another one about bugs, right? It's for like stress relief and anxiety relief when you're doing all these coloring and stuff. So I just started trying a bunch of stuff. And then the latest coloring book I made was for toddlers, ages 1 to 4. And that was just like baby animals, right? And I think, I think that sometimes I think to myself, man, I think you have ADHD, right? Because I get restless. And the only thing that keeps me going is I told myself I'll make these coloring books until June 18th and see what happens there. And then after that, I was like, maybe I'll try other stuff like that too. But I found it quite interesting that I'm, as much as we want to take breaks and relax, it's kind of true what Sunseam says is, don't take a break for too long, right? You got to get yourself into these things. And I found it quite interesting that I'm now looking for more things to do. Right. And of course, for me, since I've been running Providence all my life, I probably, in the end, I'm probably going to go back to Providence work and stuff like that too, eventually. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the same capacity as I was before. But yeah, these thoughts just come to my head. And I'm not sure, like, you guys ever get like that with your jobs or your missions at church or, just the things that you do? You ever just kind of feel like, oh, I want a break. And then later you're like, oh, man, I'm bored. I need to do something else. Like in my head, I have 2 thoughts in my head because sometimes we get bored or we don't like doing something because it's just not the right fit. And also, I think most of the time we will get bored or not want to do something because, like it's a natural thing to get bored of something because we haven't raised the level. And we basically just need the mentality to push through and raise the level even higher, right? And, it's quite interesting. I'm looking, and I think that's where prayer comes in. Prayer comes in is trying to discern and figure out, maybe God is telling me this is not the right thing for me to do, or it's time for me to try something else, or God is just saying, yeah, this is a natural part of anything that you do. You just got to push through it, raise the level, and push through it again, right? And then you need that mentality to do so. So I'm not sure. What do you guys think about that? Like, that's something that's kind of be in my mind. Like, yeah, but yeah. I'm just thinking a little bit, I just think for me, I've only been doing these coloring books for 3 weeks, right? So, and I've done a ton of them, right? So in the matter of like 21 days, I've made like 15 books altogether, which I think is quite a lot. And I'm going to make as much as I can until the month is over. But are you guys in that zone, in that mood? You ever get that where you're just like, should I move on or should I push through kind of thing? And yeah, I'm thinking prayer is the only way for us to really discern between the two things, I think. Yeah. So that's one of the things that has been in my mind lately. And plus, it's getting really hot outside. So, when you're in the heat, it makes you even more lazier for some reason. I don't know. That's just something that I've been thinking about. I'm in, Provipuff Girls, I'm in their chat room. Because I'm the one that's, helping, leading it, and I'm the one posting these videos and stuff like that too. They've already got like 6 episodes already done. And I'm in the chat room, and I'm not really like a real part of the chat room. I'm just kind of there. And, they'll tell me when, oh, this is happening, and they go through their brainstorming and stuff. But it was hilarious the other day because they were having this conversation on text for hours. It was literally for hours to the point I had to shut off my notifications for that chat room. And, like I'd be doing something, I'd look back at the chat room, there'd be like 150 unread texts and stuff like that. I'm like, man, they're going off. So I decided to get into it, just kind of looking at what they're talking about. It was hilarious because, they just watched the Man Cave that came out the other day, and they're like talking about, oh, it was so funny, this, and this, we should do a response, and we need more ideas kind of thing. And then it just got to them starting to just complain about girls. So these are the Provipuff Girls, and they're complaining about girls, right? They're complaining about like girly girls and how they, when you travel with girly girls, they have too much luggage and all this makeup. And then, and when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, okay. And then what happens is they're like going, you know what? I think we're trashing girls too much. And then they switch to trashing guys, right? And when I was listening to this, it was quite funny because, I'm reading it, but, as human being, I'm reading it with like, I'm picturing it in my head, like how they're talking. Right? So just reading some of the stuff, it was so girly. I was just like, they're like, ew, guys are so smelly. I don't think they clean themselves that well. So like, oh my God, don't you guys have, like, don't you know those guys that like have that sweaty smell? It's so gross. I need to Febreze my room to get rid of that smell. And then I tell the guys that they have to buy the Febreze because it's their fault. And oh my gosh, OMG, look at the way they dress. It's so unaesthetically pleasing, and it just bothers me. I don't know why, but it just does. And you know what? Guys just don't know about girls. They're so dull. I have to spell it out, and I'm just listening to I'm reading all this, and I'm listening to the voice in my head, and I'm just like going, oh my gosh. And this conversation went on, I'm talking literally for hours. Text conversations going for hours. It went on forever. And it was just interesting to see the dynamic because I'm also in the Man Cave chat room, and there is nothing close to that conversation in our room. It's similar though. I would have to say the content is similar because we will just make fun of girls and make fun of guys, make fun of each other. It's just, the good thing about both chat rooms is both sides are just having a ton of fun, right? And for me, I'm just like, wow, like there is a difference about the things that girls and guys speak about, but both speak a lot. Well, I'm gonna have to say the Man Cave doesn't speak as much as the Provipuff, like nowhere close. Like if I were to like start printing out the chats in the Man Cave and the Provipuff Girls would probably be about like 40 pages longer. It would be because there's just so much more conversation in there too. Right? But I'm happy because both sides are having fun, and I'm happy that you guys out there are having fun listening to those two segments also. And like I said, if you guys want to join Provipuff or Man Cave, go ahead. Contact someone from the group. You can join the team too. We're always looking for new people who have like new ideas or new opinions, and I hope it's something that some of you may enjoy just the listening part. But I do also know that there are some people out there who have good opinions. And opinions that are different that they would like to kind of participate in. And some people can do it just through the comments too. So I thought that was kind of a funny moment yesterday. Just kind of, when you missed 150 texts, you don't want to go through it. But then when I started reading it, I just kept reading and reading and reading. It was just too funny. But either way. So yeah, that's kind of one of those funny moments for me yesterday. Oh, but you know what? I was talking to some people at church. I'm not sure about your churches out there. How is your church attendance these days? Like people literally, like physically coming to church, right? How many people actually come out to church? And let's just say compared to pre-COVID. Pre-COVID compared to now, is there a difference in the numbers? Like, I don't know. It could be different from country to country. From the people that I talk to, it looks like most people say it's lower than pre-COVID. Like not as many people coming out. And we're not talking about people who left or stuff. It's just in general, a lot of people don't physically come out to church. And the thought came to mind because, when we're having these conversations, I thought like, what would it take for people to start running again? Or to really get back into it, to get back into this history? Because it feels like for some of the people I talk to, it feels like churches and church members are struggling just to exist. Just to be here in this history, not to make history, not to make it greater and better, to show the world that this is the history of God. It's more of we're here just to exist at the moment. Is that the same with other churches out there too, whether it's in Japan or Korea, or like Malaysia, Canada, the US, like Europe? Like, what's it like over there in your countries when it comes to attendance, and what's the feeling? Are people like really back into it, or is it kind of slow and sluggish, and people are just kind of trying to exist, right? Now, I'm not talking about just people who run full time, but I'm talking about everyone, career, family, because you could still have a career and you could still have a family, but still have that heart for this history to want to make it better, being more active, volunteering time and stuff like that too, right? So, what's your churches like out there? Are they same as before? Is the mood still the same as it was beforehand? And my thought is, like, what do you think it would take for people to get back into it? You know what I mean? Like, what would it take? Because I'm sure it would be just as frustrating for the people who are running really hard, but then now there's not as much support as there was before, right? And I was thinking to myself what would make people get back into it? And I was thinking about this for a while too. Like, what would make someone excited again and wanting to do something, having that feeling of wanting to help, wanting to volunteer their time, wanting to see things get better, putting in the effort to do so. You know what I mean? So the first thought that came to my mind is, like, even when I started this coloring books and stuff, there's that feeling you have in the beginning, right? Right before you get hyper-focused, you're like, oh yeah, and you have, I realize, like, for me, I have some type of hope in what I'm doing. I can see the end result and I'm like, oh, I got some hope. So I start doing this, I get hyper-focused into it. And I'm thinking, like, maybe that's something that we're missing right now. That maybe people now are all in, like, waiting mode. Like, we're kind of wait and see, waiting for the results, waiting for the trials, waiting for the reactions of people. And it's a very, very defensive position. Like, when I look at other churches that were once deemed cults, like, say, Jehovah's Witness or Mormons, right? People have always been saying bad things about them, but they're pretty confident. They go about their business the way that they want, and they're there to restore the kingdom of God on earth, and they truly believe with a passion. They don't care what people say, right? And they see something that they want to do. They have hope in the history of God, and it kind of feels like we're missing that hope. What do you think? Right? Like, I think we do need that hope. We need that hope, not just hope in this trial, because that's way too short term, right? And that hope will end within this year, right? So I think we need to see things maybe more long term, bigger. And I think it's also very, very beneficial when there are small results that we see along the way. So I don't know that many people. Like, even when you look at your churches, you guys can fill me in the comments below too, is how many of you are seeing results in your church right now? Like, some type of tangible thing, like, for instance, more newcomers, more evangelism, more people coming to church, or the level of praise is going higher, or the community is getting closer. Like, do you guys see those things happening, or is your church also in kind of more of a defensive mode? Like, oh, we shouldn't evangelize right now because of the situation. Oh, this is happening. This is happening. Like, are we seeing anything get better? Is it getting better? Or are we just on edge, wondering when the next terrible thing is going to happen and how we're going to defend ourselves in the next area, kind of thing, right? And I really feel that we need to start feeling and seeing hope again. Like, I don't think we can survive in the way we are now, when it's just survival mode. Like, we need to reach a new level in hope, reach a new level in love. We need to see that, what we do actually matters. And I also think we need to stop thinking I think this is one of the big things is, if we get too defensive and if we're too much thinking about our own survival, we start to think that our individual opinion matters more than the group. And I think that's kind of a dangerous thing, because you're going to have like 40 people all in different areas and different thoughts in different directions. But we kind of need to bring people back together in a real direction, right? Because, if the individual opinions have to kind of lower the individual opinions and look at the group as a whole, because our thoughts matter. They do, But how we go about it when it comes to us in a group situation is very, very important too. Do you see yourself a part of the group, or are you an individual in that group where you're thinking only about what you want and what you think is better, right? And I think that is something that should be discussed, and that is something that we should think about more clearly too in our hearts has our own personal opinions outgrown the group itself? And there could be many reasons for that. Sometimes the group doesn't benefit or is not it's not very good for the whole group. Sometimes that type of thing is there too. So yeah, I was thinking about this, and it was something that was in my heart and my mind, and I think it's something that we all need to kind of think about is, how do we get this history back on track, where it's not just back on the tracks, but, we've got the engines pumping and it's just starting to move again, right? And I really think it's important that all of us can see, like through the comments, how each country and how each church is actually doing. Because sometimes people will realize like, oh, we're not the only ones like this. Oh, I thought we were the only ones. Or, oh, wow, like listening to the testimony yesterday from Cameron, it's inspiring, and people are like, oh, wow, I can do better now. Oh, this person is like, they become like a role model for people too. So I think it's something that we can really think about a little bit more deeply as we move on, right? So, those are a couple of the thoughts and the things that I thought that were kind of flowing through my mind. And, I have, of course, there's Wednesday service tonight, but also, I'm meeting a bunch of people, a couple people this week too. So I think I'll have more stuff to talk about after that also. Either way. All right. So let's move on to our first break then.
I'm happy if you're happy. The Trinity are happy too. That is all that matters. Since we found the path of life, now we can say time can keep flowing away. I'm on the way to heaven. We have fulfilled God's purpose of eternal love. In that golden heaven above, from the sunrise to the sunset, even as the moon begins to rise, even as the stars light up the night, we should go on serving God, serving the Holy Spirit. You and I should spend our days like this. I'm on the way to heaven. We have fulfilled God's purpose of eternal love. In that golden heaven above, from the sunrise to the sunset, even as the moon begins to rise, even as the stars light up the night,
right, so let's get into today's second segment, which is the word study. And actually, I made a mistake. I put the biblical word study on yesterday when it should be practical, and then Wednesdays is always the Bible word study. So I did make a mistake this week again. Maybe I'm not in my right mindset, but let's get into today's practical word study. And this week's message is very, very easy to put into action because there's like 2 or 3 things and you can just instantly do it. And I think it's something that we should be doing anyways, right? Like, for instance, this week's message is you see God through the word. If it's the Holy Spirit's words, you read the word and you see the Holy Spirit. If it's the man of mission's word, you read it, you see the man of mission. Whether it's Jesus' words, everything is about the word, right? And of course, this is something that I really hope that all of us can do a lot better is starting to read the Bible more, right? Reading the Bible and reading the word more. Now, we have to think about it in this way. If we believe that reading the word is seeing God, then the greatest form of action would be to start reading the Bible and the words of this time period, right? And it's one of the things where people say, God, I want to see you. Well, this week's message is perfect because if you really want to see God, all you need to do is start reading the Bible or reading the words. And, sometimes people say, well, it's not easy to make this into like a real, to actually put this into action. And it's true. It's not easy to put things into action. But I think one way to make things a lot easier is when people do things together, like a book club, right? I think it's good to have people doing readings together, like a book club. And if you do a book club, what happens is like people will spend 1 or 2 weeks before, they'll meet maybe once or twice a month, but they'll spend a week or 2 in reading certain chapters or books of the Bible. And then they come together to discuss and talk about it. And they'll talk about what are their thoughts on the word and what are their realizations from what they read. And I think book clubs are quite popular. And I really think that is something that is beneficial for a lot of people to get themselves into it. Because, book clubs are kind of fun. You meet at someone's house. You guys have like food and desserts. People bring baked goods, whatever it is. So it's just a really fun time, And I think that's something that we should really consider, like maybe even having a channel on maybe a podcast here where you have a book reading club where you have 3, 4, 5 people that are, all reading certain chapters together. We could all do it together too. And, we can record sessions of people and their discussions on what they got from the books or the chapters they read for that week. See, like, here's one of the interesting things that even when I was, doing missionary work, one of the things I thought was quite interesting is whenever I talk to people in Providence or Christianity, like all of us believe in the Bible. We all believe in the Holy Bible. Like we believe with our hearts that, these are the words of God. God directly spoke these words and God speaks to us through the words and God gives us answers and revelation through the word. But the interesting thing is, even though people believe these things, if you ask them whether they read the Bible or not, they usually don't read it. Like they'll believe us like, oh yeah, words of life. Oh, God speaks to me. Oh, answers to life are there. But they don't read it. Which kind of means like, when you think about it, like when I talk to these like students and stuff, it's like, man, does that mean we really believe it's the word of God? Or do we just say it because it's what we're supposed to say? But if you truly believed it was it was God's word, God speaking to us, speaking to our hearts, it was a transformational book. It'll change our life. It'll answer the questions to life. Then if you really, really believe it, then how much more would you read it more than any other book, right? It's kind of like when I look at people who are reading success books, they read these success books and it's kind of like, they truly believe, oh my gosh, these are the best, this, if you read this book, you'll make more money, whatever it is, right? And I was listening to a podcast from PBD, like Patrick Beck David, and he's very, very rich, famous person. He's got a YouTube channel, and he swears by some of these books if you want to be successful. And he says he would listen to this book over and over in his car so he'd understand these concepts that he was being told. Right? And to that point where he put it all into action and he started making money, right? So other people will see him make money and see him be successful and they'll all start reading the same books because they truly believe it, right? And I think that's something that we have to think about when it comes to us in our spiritual lives is how much do we really believe it's the words of God? Do we really believe it, right? Yes, we might believe it with our lips, but how much do we truly believe it to the point that we're actually reading it all the time? And that's why the first thing is it's the Bible. Start reading the Bible again. Start a book club. Maybe we'll start one here on this podcast. Start a book club and everything else. Or if some people like to do it on their own. I think it's a great idea to start. But we got to start reading this every single day. The second thing that I really got from this week's message that I think that we have to make it more practical is one of the things, it was the third point that was made of people feeling left out. People feeling left out by God, feeling left out by the man of mission, feeling left out by their brothers and sisters, by their family, people feeling left out. But the interesting point that was made was Satan comes especially when people feel left out, right? So when you learn the lesson of the fall, there is a parable that Sunseam talks about how the fall occurs, right? And I think everyone knows the story. There was a servant and a master, and the servant loved his master, and the master loved the servant. And every day the master went to the market and came back and brought 2 apples to the servant. And every time the servant got those 2 apples, he was so happy. Now, one day, the master has a daughter. And every day from this point on, when the master came back from the market, he brought the servant his 2 apples. But then he would bring his daughter 4 apples. And when the servant saw that the daughter was getting more than him, he became so upset, felt left out because the daughter had more. Then the servant thought, the only way to get more apples is to love the daughter. If I love the daughter, then the master is going to treat me just as well as the daughter. So eventually we all know what happens, which is the fall, and the servant falls with the daughter and tempts the daughter, right? And that's kind of the story that we heard. And when you look at this, if you look at what is the greatest cause of feeling left out, is usually when you're looking at other people and comparing, right? When you see others doing better, when you see others with more, when you see how God is blessing others and you're not being blessed as much, it sometimes feels unfair. And that, look at my situation, God, how come you don't help me like you help them? And I also remember in the past, there was another parable, an analogy that Sunseam gave about people getting blessings at different times. And basically, Sunseam said that it's like everyone has a watch, right? So imagine everyone has a watch, and everyone is going to get blessed when it hits midnight, right? So when it hits midnight, you get blessed. However, everyone's clocks are all at different times. Some people are 7 a.m., some people 10 a.m., some people 2, maybe 5 p.m., 9 p.m., and some are at like 11:58 or they've hit midnight. And what happens is, if you keep looking at other people's watches and you see other people getting blessed, you start to get jealous and you feel left out. But you have to realize that everyone has their own watch, and you have no idea what that person went through, the conditions they set to be in their position. And that's why you have to keep your eyes on your own watch, right? Keep your eyes on your own watch, right? And that's something I really think that's a mentality we have to keep. And if we're going to be a true community, I think one of the signs of having a true community or true friendships is whenever someone gets blessed, you should be able to celebrate together with them. You know what I mean? It's like if you're really true friends, you're not jealous of what they got. If you're really a true community, everyone celebrates the wins for everyone. When they win, everyone celebrates together. When someone loses, everyone comes together and support that person. And I think that's one of the big things that has to happen in our communities. And it starts with the individual, right? The individual needs to realize that, we're not going to have everything, right? We're not going to be that, we're not going to be blessed. We're not all going to be blessed at the same time. Not everyone's going to go through these same things, right? And we have to keep our eyes on our own watch, knowing that, okay, it's 2 p.m. I got 10 hours to work. Got 10 hours to work. Let's just keep it going. And during those 10 hours while you're working, tons and hundreds and thousands of other people are getting blessed. Why? Because it's their time. One of the biggest mistakes of human beings is just we don't know enough, right? Like, what does that mean, we don't know enough? Not knowing enough means that a lot of times we make judgments of people based on what we see, which is not a lot, right? And that's why there's that phenomenon when someone gets blessed, we think it was like easy for them. But we didn't see the hard work. We didn't see all the suffering they went through, right? And that's why we have to keep our eyes on our own watch. We all have our own stories that we're going to be building, the stories that we're making too. So I had a couple of ideas that I think are pretty good for everyone. And I think it will help us kind of to get out of that feeling left out zone, right? And one of them I think is like a diary, but in your diary or your journal, girls are, diaries are for girls, journals are for guys, whatever it is. But if you have a diary or a journal, I think one of the good things that you can do is have a Thanksgiving part in your journal and diary, just being thankful for what we already have, right? And when you write these things every day, it keeps you based. It gives you a foundation because you're always thinking about what you have already, and not about what you don't have or what other people have, right? Actually, there was this, I was really inspired by this because there's a cafe worker at the cafe I always go to, and she is writing in her journal every day. She comes to the cafe even when she's not working, and she's there doing her journal, her diary, laying down her thoughts, her feelings, kind of processing what she's going through, choices she makes, what she wants to do. And for me, I looked at her, I was like, wow, I really admire her. Like she's like one of 5 children, and she's the eldest, very responsible, wakes up 6 a.m. every day no matter what, 21 years old, and she's been doing this for a while. And even when I talk to her about like deep things, she's very, very strong in foundation, meaning she's very stable, something she doesn't know, but she's comfortable with it. And even though she's young, she was very, very mature, right, in the way that she handled things. So I think it's a very, very good idea for us to, have this journal or this diary that we can write things in and just, we can process our thoughts. And sometimes we just got to write it down. Like even in my head, I was thinking to myself, I was like, maybe it's good to have someone to talk to. But then I realized you could get too caught up in the person and rely on them too much when that time of writing, that journal time, it's more of a quiet time for yourself and between you and God, right? So I think it's probably like, one of the best ways for us to never forget is to always, to build habits in our lives. And I think maybe installing these into our, quiet times in the morning is good when you start off with prayer, the word, read the Bible for a bit, and then just go into your journal. And I think this would be something that a lot of people would definitely benefit from if you're kind of in those feelings or those moods, right? And I hope it's something, one of the things we're here to do in the community is not just like me giving my advice or the things that I've read up or the things that I've tried, but, in the comments below, I'd love to hear what you guys do to keep yourselves based, keep your foundation stable, right? And if it's working or if you're someone who needs it, right? Because if we have a lot more comments and ideas of what people are doing, then, some things are going to fit these people and some things will fit other people, right? And I hope it's something that all of us can really think together like, yeah, this is something we really need to take ourselves to the next level about. All right? Either way. So there it is, guys. That is a practical word study for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments or ideas, go ahead and put it in the comments below. Okay? So that means we're going to move on to our second break for today.
Sincerely I pray, please forgive all my sins. Please forgive me, please don't leave my side. Take me as your own. If alone I wander, death will carry me away. Anxiously, won't you, Lord, wash my sins away? Lord, if you make me clean. I'll live my life
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today on this wonderful Wednesday. And of course, every single Wednesday we have Health is Happiness. And yes, I know last week I didn't put it on because there was some technical difficulties, but everything is fixed right now. So we're gonna go into Health is Happiness, and today is Dr. Abe over there in Australia, just doing an amazing job with this too. And he's gonna be talking about the liver, and this is the second part. Right? So this is part 2 of the liver. Hope you guys enjoy this, all right? So everyone, please welcome all the way from Australia. This is Dr. Abe with Health is Happiness.
Hi everyone, it's Abe here, doctor in Melbourne, Australia, and we are back after a short hiatus with our organ series. Last time we spoke about the liver, so let's now continue our discussion. Now, when it comes to diseases of the liver, I like to think them in 5 categories. The first is infections. Now, these are the hepatitis viruses. There's 5 of them, and they go from A to E. You can get them from either exposure to an already infected person's blood, by eating contaminated food or water, but particularly in ice, or through sexual contact. Thankfully, we actually do have vaccines for most of them, and for the ones that we don't, there are very good antivirus treatments available. Moving on, the second category is substances. So these include medications, and the big one is alcohol. So, lots of medications as a side effect can affect the liver. And that makes sense, right? Because remember last time we talked about how the liver processes toxins from our bloodstream. Now, the way it works is medications often have an active ingredient, and that specific ingredient is what helps us with the medical condition that we have. Unfortunately, sometimes, however, those medications have toxic byproducts, and those are the things that can affect the liver. Now, just to be clear, it's not all medications, and when used in safe and correct doses that your doctors have prescribed you, they won't actually affect your liver. But if, for example, you overdose, and the most common medication that is overdosed is paracetamol in this context, then that can harm your liver in a lot of ways. The other substance is alcohol, which is also processed by the liver. So excess alcohol can actually lead to what's known as cirrhosis. So let's discuss cirrhosis in a little bit more detail as an aside. So cirrhosis is specifically when the liver becomes scarred and roughened, and this is essentially due to a long-standing repeated toxin buildup, of which alcohol is one. So moving into this a little bit further, it's actually a progressive problem that happens over a lot of years essentially. So the liver inherently is actually very good at healing itself. It has a really big regenerative capacity. However, in cirrhosis, the liver is exposed to a toxin. That toxin causes inflammation of the liver. The liver then tries to heal itself, but if the toxin is still present, then the healing can't keep up. So eventually, the liver cells die and they're replaced by scarred and fibrotic tissue. If the toxin still isn't replaced, then this cycle just continues and continues and continues. So eventually, most of the healthy liver cells die out and they are replaced by that non-functioning scar tissue. And that's why the liver is very rough and thickened. Okay, let's move on to the third category. Now, there are actually non-alcoholic causes of cirrhosis, and that leads me to the third category, which is called fatty liver disease. Now, this fatty liver disease essentially relates to what's known as the metabolic syndrome. Okay, and the metabolic syndrome contains things like obesity, high cholesterol, diabetes, and high blood pressure. All these concurrent medical conditions are a cesspool for liver disease. Because what happens is with obesity and high levels of cholesterol, the liver actually develops pockets of fat within itself. And that's again very toxic and causes inflammation of the liver. And the cycle of healing and insult of the liver starts again like we spoke about and eventually leads to cirrhosis. Okay, the fourth category is known as autoimmune disease, and that essentially means where the body attacks itself. And there's also a component of genetic diseases such as hemochromatosis, which essentially means too high iron levels in the blood, or Wilson's disease, which essentially means too high copper levels in the blood. Once again, too much of anything is toxic to the liver. Now finally, our fifth category is cancer. One of the most common cancers of the liver is called hepatocellular carcinoma. I come to it last because essentially any of the disease categories we spoke about can eventually lead to cancer. If there's a lot of inflammation, a lot of scarring of the liver, it can predispose the healthy liver cells to undergo mutations. And with any mutations in the genetic code, your liver is very susceptible to developing cancer after that. Okay? Now, in terms of the symptoms, there are many symptoms and signs that might indicate that you have an issue with your liver. The most well-known one is jaundice. Now, jaundice is the yellowing of your skin and eyes, and it actually occurs due to a chemical called bilirubin, which accumulates in your blood. Now, it's actually a normal product of our body, and it gets processed in the liver and then removed from our body in either our urine or stool. But if you have liver disease, well, that means your liver can no longer process that bilirubin, and so it accumulates in our blood. And once it reaches certain levels, that's why the yellow tinging starts to appear in our skin and eyes. Other symptoms also include itchiness of the skin. You may also notice pale stools or darker urine. You obviously might develop some abdominal pain, particularly on the right-hand side, because that's where the liver sits. And associated with this, you might have some nausea and some vomits. Now, those are sort of general signs and symptoms that something might be wrong with the health of your liver. But moving forward from that is that your liver can actually go into failure. And it's important to know some of the signs and symptoms here because, of course, it's a medical emergency. Now, all of the above diseases that we spoke about can cause this, and some of the biggest signs to look out for is what's known as hepatic encephalopathy. So hepatic is just another way of saying liver, and encephalopathy is just a fancy way of saying any disorder that is affecting the brain. So it's basically saying a liver causing brain dysfunction. And often patients present with confusion, they might go into a coma, they're very unsteady on their feet, they're not thinking straight. So that's the first symptom of liver failure. The next is called ascites. Now what this is essentially is fluid accumulation in the stomach. And so often patients will come in with very, very distended stomachs. And that's a sign that potentially that the liver is failing. And one of the other major signs and symptoms of liver failure is bleeding and bruising. Now, we mentioned that the liver has a very important role in producing the clotting proteins. And if there's a deficiency in it, then obviously, if you can imagine that you have a cut, if there's no clotting proteins in the bloodstream, you'll continue to bleed. So thanks everyone for listening in. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about liver diseases. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
And thank you so much, Dr. Abe, for all your time and effort. And, you know, this is a real doctor, and he's putting his own time into these different segments. And I'm super grateful, thankful for all the doctors out there. Dr. Abe did a wonderful job on the liver part 2. And I'm not sure about you guys, but for me, it's a little bit scary when I hear health is happiness because I'm kind of scared to hear all the bad things that I'm doing to my liver. I'm like, oh no, I'm doing this. And, you know, you kind of freak out. You know, it's like sometimes people don't want to go to the doctors to get checked up because they're scared to find out, like, what disease and stuff they have. And I was listening to it, I was like, oh. But, you know, the good thing about Dr. Abe is he's got, like, kind of that... He's got like that gentle doctor's voice. So even if it's bad, it doesn't really sound that bad. But either way, I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Everyone, have an amazing and awesome Wednesday and service tonight. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive.